Today I'm sharing 3 easy but very impactful cards for you today using products from Spellbinders. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. This is the Awareness Ribbon and Sentiments Stamp and Die, and so I'm going to start off with using that, and then I'm going to use some other products with those sentiments to create 2 other cards. But this first card means a lot to me. This is a purple ribbon. This is for epilepsy awareness. Some of you may know, some of you may not know that my daughter was diagnosed with epilepsy at 15, and then in 2023 ended up passing away from her epilepsy at 22. So this really means a lot to me. So that's why I created this ribbon. That's why I'm talking about these cards being very impactful for people that might be going through some really hard medical things. These sentiments are really fantastic in here. And this is a great way to support somebody you know, or send it to organizations that might accept cards. I know scrapbook.com has their cards for kindness. They might have things like that. So that's the 3 cards that I'm going to be making or surrounding that kind of situation. So the colors that I'm using here are from Spellbinders. I'm using the greens are Fern and Rainforest. The purples are Fairy Tale, Lavender, and Lilac. And then the yellow is Beeswax. This floral set is the Leaf and Bloom dies from Spellbinders. Really, really pretty. I love that there's 3 different sizes of flowers that you can choose from. So this background, I did a 3D embossing folder. Sorry, I forgot to show that on camera. On white cardstock, it is scrapbook.com's Little Boxes folder, and I just thought it was really pretty. So I'm actually going to move this ribbon over to the left. Now, there's 2 words. I think it's strength and it might be hope. And I did strength because my daughter was so brave in the stuff that she was going through. And so she had a lot of strength. And so that's why I put that on this ribbon. Let me get this leaf tucked in there. But again, I'm going to slide this over to the left because the flowers were a little too far to the right, but I didn't do it till after I started gluing things down. Sometimes that happens, and you just have to pick it up real quick and move it over. But I did add some foam adhesive behind the ribbon, and I love the florals next to it. It's just so very pretty and soft. These are really dainty flowers, and I really liked that look. Coincidentally, my daughter's favorite color is purple, like that dark purple. She loved it, so it kind of made sense that this was all done in purple. So let me slide this over. That's where I'm deciding I need to move this just a little bit. So I'm carefully lifting that up. I have 2mm foam adhesive behind this. So I'm going to go to the left just a little bit, and then I can kind of put everything else in place. Now the sentiment that I'm going to be putting on this one says bravery looks a lot like you, because my daughter was very brave. And so a lot of people that are going through all of these kind of hard things, you are brave. You are brave for going through that. So I think it's a perfect sentiment. Oh, look at how pretty these are. Now I will trim up some of these stems here just because they are a little bit long. But sometimes it takes a second just to kind of finagle and get that in place. I liked that the leaves were overlapping the top part of the ribbon, but I didn't want it to cover up any of the sentiment there. So I was just being careful on where I placed that. Adding foam adhesive behind the flowers themselves, just to give that a little bit of give it some dimension, of course. Look at how pretty that is. So simple. If you want a lot of white space, and these cards have a lot of white space, using embossing folders are really fantastic. Now I have an embossing folder from Spellbinders. I did not use on the first one. I just didn't want it on the first one. So I will show it to you on the other 2. And I'm going to just stamp the first sentiment here, but I'm going to stamp them all the same using black ink. And then I will use my paper trimmer to trim it out. And that's going to give us a really nice sentiment that goes on this card. And I do trim down the background piece slightly smaller than an A2 size. So then when I place it on a white card base, it has another white matte. I like the white on white, especially if you've got some texture. like with this embossing folder or texture paste or white embossing powder, however it is that you want to do it. And then having a little white simple frame around it looks really, really nice. But of course, I'm going to pop it up with 1mm foam adhesive because I like that a lot too. And then that's going to be our first card. These really are all super, super easy, like I mentioned. Some simple die cutting, you don't have to color anything. And if you're just picking the colors of your florals and have everything else white, it's really striking and really pretty. Okay, let's take one of those smaller, this is the Playful stitched panels. I'm going to take a smaller one and create a frame, and then I'm going to use the favorite song embossing folder to emboss the outside frame, but not the inside piece. I'm still going to keep that inside piece. So this has beautiful music notes, and once this was embossed, it was way more beautiful than I thought it was going to be. Like, it was stunning. I could not get over it. So these flowers are Tutu and Wild Berry. And the green is Rainforest. I'm going to do one flower here. This is going to be centered in that open window. So let's kind of put this together. Now I want to keep that insert piece because that has the stitching on it from the die cut, which gives another level of pretty on the inside. So I'm just taping down the outside frame really quick to my card base, gluing down my inside piece, and then I can add my 2mm foam adhesive to the back side of that frame. And then, yeah, I did two. Making sure I didn't do one, I did two. I wanted a good amount of dimension. And again, because it's all white, doing stuff with texture and embossed areas and plain white really is quite stunning, instead of just plain white on plain white on plain white. Although sometimes that kind of works, but again, if you just throw in a little bit of texture with an embossing folder, as easy as that, it just creates this really gorgeous background. Let me add, I'm going to do 1mm foam adhesive behind these. Let me add just a couple pieces behind the leaves. And then I'm going to center that, trim that excess off, and then I can get my outside frame on here. I had it upside down, but there we go. Look at how pretty that is. Then we're going to use the sentiment that says, "Sending courage wrapped in a card." How perfect is that? Again, that's from the sentiments from the Awareness Ribbon and Sentiments set. This has some foam adhesive because it needs to be popped up, and I do want it tucked behind that bottom leaf just a little bit. And then I'm going to come in with some white pops of color on that little background piece to give that a little also something extra, but again, that white on white. Okay, let's use the Playful stitched panels and die cut the largest panel, so it's A2 sized. So this is going to be our background piece. And then I'm going to take, I did a smaller piece, and then I'm going to go even smaller to create a frame. So let me just tape that in place, and then I can run that through my die cut machine. So now we have some layers. The largest piece I'm going to run through the die cut machine with the Favorite Song 3D embossing folder. Again, it's so pretty. It just is prettier on the paper than it looks like on the embossing folder. Then I die cut those leaves from the Leaf and Bloom dies, and I'm just taping them in place with some low tack tape. And then, because I didn't want to have to line them up again, so I'm going to add my glue, and then I'm going to adhere that to the front of that frame, excuse me. And then I can remove the low tack tape. The colors I used were Chiffon, Bellini, Coral, and Sicily cardstock from Spellbinders. Aren't they gorgeous? I just loved this design here. I think it's so, so pretty. And then I'm going to add 2mm foam adhesive behind this frame as well. Let me get that. This is the 1/4 inch mint tape from scrapbook.com, and it did its job just to hold those guys together while I got the glue. And then now I can add my foam adhesive on the sides of this frame. This will be centered in our background piece that is also embossed. And then you notice that the front frame is not embossed, but it does have, because these are etched dies, has that little stitching detail around the edges. And it's like 2 layers of stitching that kind of overlap each other and cross each other. So it's so pretty. And then the sentiment for this says, there is strength in your smile. So I'm going to place that there right in the center. And then these cards are complete. Here's that first gorgeous one. We have our second here with just a singular flower. And then our third one with all of those pretty leaves. I love how these cards turned out. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed these projects. I hope you feel inspired. I hope you guys have an amazing day. And if you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. Bye.